Space Advisory Committee to order September 12th, 2018. We'll just go around the room. Come on up.
Hi.
Just getting started.
I didn't get my appointment letter. So.
Are you not official?
I guess I'm not official. I'm sorry, what's your name? Marcy Strauss. Hi, Marcy. I'm Allison. Nice to meet you. I haven't gotten any word that you're official yet.
I watched the board meeting and they were voting because there were multiple candidates. And
There
was a tie.
There was information since then.
Oh, there was?
Yeah,
Oh,
Mark.
Oh.
Mark, do you have?
Yeah, so Peter, right?
Yeah.
You're Peter. So it was a tie between Marcy and Peter, and then Peter graciously sent an email to the board retracting his
Saying he'd wait
nomination, saying waiting for the next spot.
Yeah.
But obviously that happened after the board meeting, so
Not official.
so it's technically not official. I don't have a problem with
Just sitting
you sitting in. I mean,
Okay.
you're going to be on OSAC, and you might as well get started.
Yeah,
as far as
come
I'm
on up.
concerned.
Yeah. Peter, very nice to meet you. And
Peter, thank you.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Thanks for your emails.
I'm Marcy.
Yeah.
Hi, Vanessa. Hi.
Marcy, I'm Ryan.
Hi,
Very
Ryan.
nice to meet you, Marcy.
I know you.
Yep.
Hi, I'm Joel.
Hi, Joel.
Nice to meet you.
Wherever you want.
Just good to see you.
We don't do assigned seats, really. So yeah, we just kind of went down the order. Alice and Mark, you guys want to just introduce yourselves?
Ladies first.
Allison James, Town Staff Liaison.
Mark Lasis, Trustee Liaison.
All right.
I don't think we got last year, so should we do that?
Oh yeah, sorry.
Joel White, committee member.
Just say your name. Just for
Marcy
the-
Strauss, I think I'm a committee member.
Yeah.
Soon to be.
Soon to be, and it's kind of fun being on the side of the table.
You're on and off.
Okay.
Microphone there. So.
I'm Ryan Welch. I'm the vice chair.
Vanessa Hetzel, committee member.
All right. Public comment at all, Peter? All right. No public comment. We will dive right into the Boulder County Open Space Trail, Boulder County Open Space and Trail recommendations. So every year, Boulder County reaches out to us to see what we as Superior would like them to focus on from an open space and trails perspective. We send them our priorities every year. They last month responded to our recommendations from last year. We typically haven't changed these, and it's not just our recommendations. These are recommendations from all the municipalities in Boulder County. So let's see, Superior. So page 12. Oh, there we go. All right, so these are the open space requests that we put in last year. Level 3 property, which I suppose Allison, can we note to change it to CenturyLink property this upcoming year. That's always been the top of our list. We provide just a few lines of why we value it the way we do, and that corresponds with what we have in the open space summary report and recommendations. The second property is Zaharias, and then the third property is Bulljack. Now, let's see, I think, so here's the maps of it. Allison, do you remember, do they only respond to our trail requests, or do they also respond to the...
It's both. I think it's the second part of the report.
Okay. Well, these are our trails. Oh, sorry. They actually responded right in line here. So Boulder County's response for level 3 is Boulder County is willing to consider participating in the purchase of this property, depending on price and terms, if funding is available. Zaharias, this property is located within the town of Superior. Since it has been annexed and is within Superior's influence area, Boulder County has no acquisition plan in this area. However, if Superior is able to negotiate the purchase of a portion of this property, Boulder County would consider partnering with the town if funding is available. And then Bulljack, Boulder County is willing to consider participating to purchase this property depending on price and terms if funding is available. So the real question is whether or not we stick with these 3 properties or...
Can I just interject for a second?
Yeah.
Ken, since we've got a new member, it might be helpful when you're referring to the various parcels
Excellent
to just
point.
identify them, so
Yeah.
Marcy can become familiar with them.
Yeah. So the Zaharias property is the one off of 88th,
Right.
next to the Hodgson Harris Reservoir that's right there. The level 3 property, which is now named the CenturyLink property, is the big hillside over on the very south end of town. It has lots of social trails, so a lot of people actually think it is currently open space, but level 3 or CenturyLink actually owns it. And then Bulljack is this sliver over here that, again, there's a house on it.
There's 2.
2 houses, yeah.
2 different properties.
Yeah. So those are the 3 that we've typically included. Now, when we did the summary report updates last year, the Rogers Farm area, which actually is not shown on the map. So Rogers Farm, which is literally right next to us, the big open space that has had cattle grazing on it and whatnot, that became one of our top 3. Number 4 was the Town 15. Yeah, actually, Allison, you have it linked in here, don't you?
Yeah, that was a different, that document, that was a different item.
Yeah.
So that works.
Okay, come on.
It was a different topic than that, but I'm glad it worked. So Bulljack was 5.
Yeah, so Bulljack fell down to number 5 for us. Superior 15 was number 4, but Superior already owns that, so that's not something we would include here. So Rogers Farm was really the property that jumped ahead. So the question is that something we're interested in adding to our request to Boulder County? It's kind of a interesting parcel because it's owned by the same people that are working on the town center. So, and that was recently purchased, I guess not recent anymore, but 3 years ago, 4 years ago by them. I don't see any reason why we can't necessarily, but it just has a bit more of a recent history than a lot of these other parcels. Thoughts?
I mean, I guess my first question is the turnaround time that it takes to get to Boulder County with this. I mean, we submitted these some time ago, right?
Yes, it generally takes about a year for them to turn around.
That's why I'm wondering, I mean, does it even make sense? Oh, thank you, Sean. Does it make sense to even look at it now versus our yearly trails review on our agenda item, later in the calendar year or earlier in the calendar year, whenever it is?
They are, even though it takes them that long to respond, they are requesting a response, I want to say, by the beginning of December. Allison, you remember?
It's right around the end of the year.
Yeah.
Okay.
So.
They request it, and sometimes it varies depending on, if they, like 1 year because of the flooding,
they still wanted it, but we were given the information that really nothing was going to be going forward because of the expenses from the flooding. So depending on when they send it out to us, we would let the group know.
Yeah.
Yeah. So unfortunately, even though it seems like such a big gap, we generally have to start this early to make sure our recommendations correspond with ProStack's, and if there is problem, or not problems, but divergences, then we can take another meeting to also address those.
Yeah. I mean, my opinion would be that in our current landscape, I definitely think that the Rogers Farm is more pertinent to us and Boulder County than Bulljack, which, you know, 2 families living on and doesn't
Yeah.
look to have any sort of pending thing. There's a lot of activity on Rogers Farm, and it abuts up to not only our open space, but Boulder County's trail. And, you know, if we were to have that property in town possession, would that make more sense for a trailhead than the side of the mountain that we've talked about, you know, with Chan Chan?
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, there's nothing saying that we can only submit 3 as well.
Mhm.
I mean, we could include those top 4. I don't see any reason why we couldn't do that.
Yeah, I agree. I think that because we rank this, it seems weird to have Zaharias on there and not Rogers Farm. It just seems inconsistent. I mean, you could maybe say, well, there's risk of development or it's owned by a developer, but that's true with Zaharias also. So
Yeah.
my vote would be to add it and just see what they say. There's a good chance it's built on by the time they get back to it and we're done. So,
Yeah.
Actually, I shouldn't say good chance. I don't know that, but
I mean,
don't
worst,
think it hurts.
yeah, worst comes to worst, they say the exact same thing as they said with the other properties, that if it becomes available and we can negotiate something.
I would imagine we would want as many properties as we can get, so we have different sizes and different locations, so we can confirm it to our budget. So I would say go for it.
I suppose, is anybody against adding this to the list? All right, so let's plan on adding we'll do these 4 as our open space requests. Moving down. Steensville.
And is this document, is it on our site?
Yes.
Okay. It looks of great interest to me, so I'd like to peruse
So
it.
Ken, while you're doing this, it's kind of a segue, but I was talking to a Boulder County gal at Chili Fest who came over and just said hi, and you know, and she said, oh, we should try to have booths next to each other next year, which if we could pull that off, that'd be really cool. But she was saying that they're considering a new alignment of the Colton Trail, the Colton Slog, instead of the straight out and straight over. That, you know, she said that's a hot one on their radar. So I don't know if we want to consider that because we have some inside, I don't know if it's inside knowledge, but
Do you know, was this someone on like their POSAC, or was this a staff member?
the
Staff member?
I've heard the same thing.
I don't know for sure.
It's in the Southern Grasslands Management Plan,
Yeah.
and that was supposed to be done years ago. The flood pushed it back, but it's close to, I think, becoming public soon. And I've heard the same thing from multiple different people at Boulder County, that that's something they want to address.
Yeah, so
that's actually number 3 right there.
I was going to say, and they actually mentioned that here. So our number 3 that we had last year is Colton Trailhead Standards, and we're basically had been asking them to improve and maintain, do a little bit of maintenance work on the Colton Trail. Their response back to us is that a planning effort is underway to have this section of the trail designated as part of the Rocky Mountain Greenway, and also have this section of the Colton Trail improved as part of that project. Funding has not been identified at this time for design or construction. So I think this is something that we keep on the list for sure. We don't know what ultimate alignments are going to look like, because I don't think they know exactly what the Rocky Mountain Greenway is going to look like. And we, depending on what comes back, we also might have comments on whether we agree or disagree with that, what that alignment looks like. But if we keep it broad and kind of stick with the standards that we want improved, then they can at least push us the direction that they want to go. And I mean, they haven't given us enough information to say we agree or disagree at this point. Here, let's just go through these real quick so everyone can see them. So we just went through Colton Trailhead. So that's number 3 down here on the list or on the map at the end of Colton and McCaslin. Number 1 is the US 36 Davidson Mesa Trail Connection. So that's trying to add a trail connection with a crossing at Marshall Road to the Mayhofer Singletree Trail. This was also Louisville's number 1. We can scroll up to Louis. Yeah. We can scroll up to Louisville that's where the response is. So similar to the Superior number 1 request, the underpass along the rest of the US 36 Bikeway is open. Boulder County has participated in discussions with Louisville about a possible connection to the Mayhofer Singletree Trail and is committed to finding a solution that will work for all agencies involved. Currently, Boulder County has identified an acceptable alignment for this trail through county open space. Boulder County is willing to work with Louisville and Superior on planning, but we don't currently have funding in our CIP for design or construction. That's the capital improvements.
It's encouraging that they have an alignment.
Yeah, no, that's
Acceptable alignment, that's news.
yeah.
And through county open space, I think, is the other important thing there. So they're not having to acquire a property to make this alignment happen.
Yeah, and here, let's scroll down to the map, make sure everyone knows what here, I'll zoom in a little bit. Too much. So that's just all the way up here at the very northwest area of the map, basically at that bend in the road where we have the new underpass. So again, I think we keep it on there just to make sure we don't lose it. And since Louisville has it as number 1, and we've had it as number 1, I think that's why it's pushing. So I think it stays at number 1 in my opinion as well. All right, number 2, the Shan Shan Trailhead. So this is both, we're including it as both a trail connection and a trailhead in here. So Boulder County staff is taking a recommendation to POSAC in August to approve an amendment to the Marshall Superior Colton Trail Corridor Management Plan for the trailhead and trail connection to the board in September. So this went to POSAC last month, I think is when we did it. POSAC approved it, gave it a thumbs up. So now it will ultimately go to the Boulder County Commissioners for final approval. I don't think we have a time on when that will occur yet, but based off past history, that's likely something that will be in a consent agenda and won't get a lot of fanfare. So I think there's a good chance of approval. And again, just to show on the map, so this is the hillside property, Shan Shan Chu, and this is where we could connect and construct a trailhead. One of the reasons, just a little bit of history, why this is important is right now there's a lot of people parking down in original town Superior, and there's parking issues along that stretch, not just with volume but also with safety, and getting so clogged up that there were issues with emergency vehicles being able to maneuver the streets. So not only does this help alleviate that concern, but with all the growth over in downtown Superior, this will also kind of add a new trail connection to hopefully provide the connectivity. So until that's done, my preference is to still keep that on there to make sure we don't lose track of it. I think once it does finish and once we actually get groundbreaking and approval from Boulder County Commissioners, I think that's when we should drop it off the list. Number 3 we talked about. Number 4, a link between the Mayhofer Singletree Trail and the Coal Creek Regional Trail. Here, I'll just start down at the map on this one. So that is a trail that basically connects that same area but down to the Coal Creek Trail. Boulder County's response town of Superior moved the interim trail during road construction. The permanent trail construction remains on Boulder County Transportation's capital improvement budget list, allowing wider trail widths for crossing Coal Creek and gradual trail grades for accessibility. So it is something that they've told us is a priority, and I think it just came down to funding availability in the past. Now, I believe, and I haven't actually looked recently at what was constructed, but I think most of that was included in the street improvement project. I mean, we at least have a hard surface path paralleling McCaslin now that covers most of that.
Yeah, but I thought this was different. I thought it was a bridge over the creek and actually more through the property.
And I think that was the intent for sure.
But you're right, the part up to that trailhead now is improved.
Yeah. So there's a soft surface road that goes from the original town area up, but that's the escape route.
Yeah.
For flooding. I don't know that it's meant to be.
You're talking about right here, right?
Yes. Yeah, kind of where the bottom arrow point on that 4 is.
Yeah, the
You
one
can
that kind of curls
go up to the sidewalk from there. Your other option currently is to ride through the neighborhood streets to the backside of City Hall here.
Yeah. So, I mean, the fact that this is still on Boulder's priority list, I don't think it's something we should drop either. That way they continue to want to put it up on their priorities as well. Our fifth one was Colton Trailhead south to Highway 28 and west to 66th Street. Due to natural resource values and constraints of the terrain, Boulder County does not consider this trail to be desirable or feasible. So,
Theoretical.
all the way down here.
Oh, yeah, okay.
So that was something that we were looking at for a while. Not, Ryan, correct me if I'm wrong, I might be jumping ahead, but this was one of the ones we dropped off the list.
No, you're right, it is. It's one that we won't actually rank that one next year.
Yeah.
Per meeting with ProStack, we both agreed to drop several trails, and that was one.
Yeah. So
That should come off.
we'll want to drop this. And then the last one we have is access to the Meadowlark Trail off of McCaslin between High Plains Drive and Christensen Avenue. They responded to this the prior year. This trail is not identified as a neighborhood connection in the management plan approved by Boulder County. Additions and changes would therefore need to be evaluated through an amendment process for this plan, and this is what we just went through for the Shan Shan trailhead. It was not approved, or Boulder County did not provide the town of Superior a modified potential connection in this area that could be considered for, or did provide the town of Superior a modified potential connection in this area that could be considered for a potential amendment. So, again, just a refresher, here's the Ridge neighborhood, and this is kind of that elbow in the trail, and there's already a vehicular emergent access right there that I think is used by the farmers in the area, and we were hoping that they could just open this up and we could get a nice, easy, basically already established connection there. They came back and told us, no, it's not ADA compliant. We're not interested in that. If you really wanted to do that, then what we could do is actually build a trail, and because of the steepness of this terrain, it would actually have to jog back and forth a few times, and at that point you're no longer looking at just an easy trail access. Now you're actually looking at a legitimate project that needs much more funding. So it's not the easy, obvious solution that I think a lot of us thought it was. Ryan, we didn't talk to ProStack leadership about this.
I was just taking that note. No, we didn't, because when we rank the trails, that trail is going all the way from there down to the Colton Trailhead, and we've talked in this group quite a bit about we wanted to amend that and just have it connect in there rather than going all the way down. I took that note, and so I'll amend what I sent out to the leadership. I mean, Corey is also actively reworking those trails, so just remember to get this change in when we rank next year.
Yeah, I mean, we have this logged in our continuity document. So Marcy, another thing we have, just because there's so much that happens year to year, and there is just a turnover in folks, we have a continuity document that we've pulled together that tracks all of our trails and just the decisions that have happened year over year, so it's easy to see, okay, we just don't have to relive the same conversations. We'll get access. We have Ryan maintains a Dropbox account.
Yeah, we'll just get you added as soon as we get your email address.
Yeah. I mean, I'm at this point, the conversation that we ultimately had on this was, we have the Colton Trailhead down here. We're going to have Shanshan right here. If this isn't an easy, cheap option, then does it really make sense to have another opening right at that location? I think everybody leaned towards no, that doesn't necessarily make sense. So the question is, do we want to even continue including this going forward?
So feedback from Chili Fest. Hi, Sean Samuelson, chronically late member. People still want number 6. They'd like to see number 6 there, regardless.
They talked to you guys about it.
They did.
Okay.
They want number 6. They don't understand why it's not opening. They still jump the fence, regardless. And they would like to see that, people, particularly at that Ridge townhouse area, they are regularly, using that spot right there. And if we ever eventually extend that trail number 11 down to the Ridge, it would make sense to still have that outlet there, because people like loops.
Yeah.
In my opinion, we don't have enough small loops. We have big loops, but not enough, we can turn around, obviously. But people like change of scenery. So in my opinion, I personally still feel that we should keep 6 on.
So is there I haven't been on that. There's just a fence at the top of the hill?
So what it is Boulder County open space access. So it is a big, wide fence that's chained that trucks drive into the open space to get to the upper part. And you can hurdle that little chain there or squeeze through pretty easily. And it is, you can see a nice double tread tire track path up the hill.
Yeah,
but because of its steepness, I guess it's greater than 4%, 6%, ADA compliant.
Yeah.
It wasn't something, at the time that we discussed, it wasn't something we were willing to put money into.
Thank you.
And also, Boulder County wasn't interested because of what Sean was talking about as well when we met with them on this specific trail.
Well, if we're hearing good feedback from the community, that's still something of interest, even if it's something that isn't the top of the priority list, then I'm fine leaving it on to make sure it doesn't fall off.
I concur.
Okay. So it sounds like the only change that we're going to make is to remove number 5 from this. No.
Something else that's important to clarify here is that because it's for Boulder County, we always look at it as connecting into Boulder County space. That's why we won't prioritize other trails, like Coyote Ridge or other things within the town.
Yeah. Coyote Ridge is over in this area.
Like town center trail connections are pretty high on our list, but that's not connecting to Boulder County, so that's why we won't submit that in this process.
Yeah. So with that said, there's not really any other trails that we have connecting to Boulder County on our list. So is there anything, Allison, do we have the access to our trail map, the one you created for Chili Fest?
And while she's doing that, maps are such a hit. You have that map out, and it just brings people out, and they start pointing, and they start talking.
Do you want this, Allison?
We probably could have had 2 or 3 to facilitate conversation at Chili Fest. So hopefully that's feedback for you, Allison. Those are really valuable and appreciated, especially with the new numbering that she did as the priority. It was really nice. And Ken, where is that document, the Boulder County document that you
Allison, did we add Boulder County's response to the website?
I'll check real quick.
I think we did.
No, I don't think we put that on the website. We haven't in the past, but we can always add it if,
I'm
I
fine.
did send it to the
No.
group just a minute ago.
Okay, I'm just
Just in
behind on
case.
some notes, that's why I care.
Because I know it was in an email thread, but I
Yeah.
thought I'd just go ahead and send it again.
I mean, I don't think that's a document that it can't be made public. And honestly, since we've expanded what we put on our website, I've been using them as a reference a lot more, and I've been sending people to our website a lot more. I'd be in favor of adding it.
Oh, this? Oh, this is not the newest.
The old one.
is it? I may not have gotten it in here yet, just because it was for Chili Fest and I was laminating it and
I think
making signs.
I think for purposes of just looking at the trails, the old one should be fine.
Okay. Sorry about that. I don't think I filed it yet. I kind of got it, printed it out as fast as I could. Got it for Chili Fest last
No
week.
worries. Thank you. All right. So as far as connections go, I mean, Boulder County said this one isn't feasible, but they are willing to connect out over here, which is why this one wasn't. They weren't interested in. Number 16, that's connecting the Coal Creek Crossing neighborhood down to the trail, and that's already established. Number 21, we built, or is built now. Actually, sorry, number 6 is built now. Number 21 is the Shan Shan Trailhead. So we have Shan Shan there. Number 6 is now built with the street improvements. Number 10 is the one that we already had on the list, and Boulder County said is a priority for them. This number 15 doesn't exist anymore because Boulder County told us that that goes across an area that has sensitive flora and fauna that they don't want to disturb. Number 4, we found out would need incredibly expensive retaining walls, and I remember Patrick saying that small trail alone would be about $1 million. So that came off our list because of cost prohibitiveness. And then number 9, have we taken that off the list, or is it still on?
That's what we're saying. We forgot to do that when that needs to just be changed to connect to that little knee in the
Right.
trail.
Yeah.
That's
So
all it needs to be.
yeah, we removed it coming all the way down because there's already a trail on the other side of McCaslin doing the exact same thing. So it would be a bit duplicative. So really, we're now, and Boulder County told us that trail number 5 they're not interested in, and we just said we take it off. So I don't know that.
Same with 12. Because 12 is a connector into that. So 12
Exactly.
is also.
So really, I don't think there's anything else that we add to this list. I think all we're doing for this Boulder County list is removing item number 5.
The only one something to consider, go back down the one along McCaslin, number 1 on our list.
You think that's?
I don't know, but I mean it's similar to the one going around High Plains Drive, right? It's connectivity from the neighborhood down to the Colton Trailhead.
Yeah, I suppose that's true. In my mind, I always wrote it off just because it's on the opposite side of McCaslin, but I guess that's
Yeah.
not really a qualifier to.
I don't know, will Boulder County care or just consider that inclusive and superior, since there's nothing on their side that would be, you need to be done for that one to happen, right? That would be work with us and the Cal Monte developer, correct?
I don't even know if they need to work with the Calmonte developer. Calmonte's already put in a good chunk of this one, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's basically done to the west one arrow.
Yeah. So really, it would just be working with us to
Right.
get.
But I thought there was some talk about, because it was steep there, that we might go through like
Yeah.
the existing Jeep road that was in Cal Monte. So,
Yeah. No, you're right. That's true.
but I mean, I'm not opposed to it. I don't know that Boulder County's going to care about it, honestly. And
I tend to agree.
Yeah.
Something to consider.
yeah,
I mean, worst comes to worst, we put it at the bottom of the list, and they say we're not interested.
I mean, one is coming off the list.
Yeah. I'm in favor of adding it and just seeing what they say. I don't think it does any harm.
Okay.
Any objections to that? Okay.
Did they have anything to do with the one that is on the east side of McCaslin that's farther up north?
Like up here? Or
No. Where you were along McCaslin going down to the Colton Trail, but it's on.
Oh, on our
east
side?
Right. Did they have anything to do with when that one went in?
I think that was just Superior. I don't think they had anything to do with that one.
Yeah. That trail's maintained by Superior.
Yeah.
So it would seem like further south would be the same thing, that it would just be Superior.
Entirely possible. I think that one went in, though, at the same time that the homes were being built, right? That wasn't a new addition afterwards, was it?
That predates me.
Yeah, I think it was kind of a developer-added one, so it's not a one-for-one comparison. I mean, I still think we could probably throw it on there and just, worst I can say is no. So added this to the bottom of the list? Okay.
Got it captured.
Perfect. And Allison, are we okay moving forward without this being a recommendation, since we also still need to have ProStack provide input on it? Okay.
And I do have an email that, after you spoke with them regarding some of the changes also. So, as soon as we can combine everything.
Okay. Perfect. So I think that covers our Boulder County open space work. Let's see, Joel has a hard stop at 8 o'clock tonight. Seeing if we have anything else that needs a recommendation that we need to prioritize. I think we'll need a formal recommendation actually for Superior Shores if we have any comments on it. How about I move to move Superior Shores up to the next agenda item.
Before we move on, are we looking to add more trails? Because I got one more input from Chili Fest that we haven't discussed yet. So again, going back to the Ridge area, a person came to me after Joel had left at the very, very end, and asked if there was any plan to have connectivity from essentially where that trail number 11 was proposed, but is very expensive, if there were any alternatives being considered that would allow access, connectivity, that's to Highway 36, that would be more direct for commuters in the morning. Apparently this person commutes quite often and doesn't like having to travel through the circle of death over here during rush hour traffic, and she was hoping that there was something that might be proposed that might circumvent going basically anywhere down along McCaslin or the circle or crossing traffic or whatnot to get to that Highway 36 bike path. I said we think about it and we'll consider what we can do, but currently the alternatives that we were looking at were prohibitively expensive.
And there will be, in the long term, that will be possible. So we have Tract A that's being finished now, connecting to the already existing Tract H, and the long-term plan is that the developer will add additional path here, and that ultimately Superior will be able to add a bike trail that connects to the 36 bikeway on our side.
Yeah, because I think right now she was going down through the rotary down Cold Creek Trail.
Yeah.
There's gravel and it floods and gets muddy, etc. And she just was looking for a different route.
Well, and that was also why trail number 19 was on here, was to convert that to a hard surface so people did have access to that regional trail from within Superior, right down by the dog park and the bike park. Because right now, if you're going through there, you have to go through mud to get on the regional trail.
Mm-hmm.
But that always ranks low in our rankings.
Yeah. Well, again, I mean, that's a great solution for that way. We don't have to deal with Boulder County. I think she was looking something that would go west instead of backtracking east.
Yeah.
So she was looking to go north and then go west as opposed to east and then west, because that adds on time
Yeah.
and distance.
Well, part of it also is how things will connect to town center as that all develops.
Yeah, I don't know if there's a good immediate solution there. I mean, the town center connections could be an answer if she's willing to ride on soft surfaces. Then ultimately, when we get a connection up here, that's another answer. I don't know if there's a good answer going down the McCaslin corridor, though.
And that's the problem. I mean, that's the
Yeah.
way she goes. It's the most direct route, but
Exactly.
it's terrible. You have to get onto McCaslin
I
right
don't
now.
disagree with
and it's
that.
very dangerous.
Caslin, that'll be nicer.
Yeah.
Yeah, from Key Bank,
It's
right.
not great, right? You still have to get through that roundabout.
Right.
Circle of death down there.
Yeah. The problem, I mean, and again, it's just, it is what it is that you'd still have to cross McCaslin to get over into a bike lane over here, or to jump onto our trail over here, and then you're crossing McCaslin again to go down there, and then, I mean, at that point, there's connectivity. But,
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So she was just looking for more direct, efficient.
I mean, there are some ways to stay off of McCaslin, when the road construction's not there. For instance, there's a tunnel underneath Rock Creek Parkway that puts you out to the sidewalk on the east side, and you can drop down and then spin around over here on the other side of the road, back onto the pavement under here. So there are some places you can cross. It's not direct for sure. And as somebody who rides a bike up and down McCaslin lot, I'm scared to death of the traffic circle still. I mean,
Yeah.
Oh, it's going to get worse too.
Yeah.
Once they develop Rogers Farm.
Okay.
Anyway, I just thought I'd put
No,
that out there.
it's good feedback. I don't know if we have any solutions for her right now, but it's good feedback to shape our decisions in the future.
One more thing, I don't think there's anything we can do about it, but Sean and I heard it at least once, maybe 2 or 3 times, was guy came up who had just finished riding on the St. Mary's Trail, which is social trail on the side of McCaslin up by Highway 128. And
Yep.
that was one of the things that he said very passionately to us, is that's the most important set of trails in this area, more so than Boulder County or
Up
anything
over
else.
in this area?
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
on CenturyLink.
So essentially from 12 up to 128, there's
Yeah.
a trail that climbs up and then trails on the top. And so, again, I don't think there's anything we can do about it, but echoing the public sentiment that that's an important piece of property for us.
You hear that over and over when you talk to people about open space priorities. Everyone, I'd say, vehemently agrees with us that that is the #1 priority for open space. So
Yep.
it's good to get that confirmation over and over.
Like
Yeah,
between
sorry.
12 and 18. Yeah.
So yeah, this is the CenturyLink property.
It's quite large.
Yes, it is. And
160 acres, 170 acres.
Sounds
something like
expensive.
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
But when we talk about it, we've talked about ways we would do it. I mean, there would be ways to figure it out if it became available.
Okay. So move on. Anybody, anything else?
Nope, that's all the feedback.
Okay. So because we want to move something up, we need to do a formal motion to change the agenda. So I move to move the Superior Shores conversation up to item number 4 and just move everything else lower. That way we have quorum if we need to vote.
I second the motion.
Okay. Any discussion? All in favor? Okay. Unanimous. All right. So Superior Shores, Allison, I'll let you drive. Do you want the keyboard?
No, I'm good, thank you.
We knew we had oceans.
Oh, I guess I do need it, don't I? Because I have to control it. I was trying to be smart.
Actually, what do we need for quorum?
5.
Okay.
Yeah. But So Marcy, I don't think.
I don't know if
I just, I don't think you can
think
vote
we can.
until it becomes official.
Yeah. And I don't see an email.
And typically, I receive an email with the new members' information, and then I would send the agenda and invite to the meeting and share the email address with the group, so I did not receive that.
Right.
So that's why I looked.
What all happened last night?
And I haven't been included on anything, so I'm sorry about that.
That's okay.
So I think this one shows the pedestrian and bike routes pretty well. In blue is the pedestrian.
Actually, Allison, can you scroll back just to make sure everyone knows where this is real quick?
You know, I could pull it up on a map too.
That's even better.
Let's do. Reservoir. So here is Flatiron Crossing and Chick-fil-A, and across the street is this parcel. So this is what we're talking about. This is the existing trail that circles the reservoir. So that existing trail is right along here, and this is the reservoir. The bike paths access is in green here, you know, along Colton Road and along the reservoir, and there's a connection here, here, here to the development. And the purple is ADA pedestrian routes. The blue is pedestrian pathways. And that kind of gives you a quick overview of the connectivity to the existing trails and then the additional routes that people have to kind of go through the area.
Can you scroll up just a little bit, please, Allison? I'd just like to see where that green goes around.
Sure, sure.
Yeah, that green that's currently there, existing.
Is there an existing trail there?
There is an existing trail there, and it is
Got it, right?
Okay.
maintained and owned by the apartments over there. And it will
Existing on-tree. There it is, okay.
yeah.
So really, there's not much.
Yeah, there's not a lot that touches OSAC.
Existing trail.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Do we have any questions on this portion before I move forward?
I think the only thing that I would note, just in watching the presentation and discussion of the Planning Commission when this came before them, is there is a requirement for a certain amount of what is termed open space, but that doesn't mean our open space. That's just, that could be manicured open space and whatnot. So there's a, actually, Allison, if we, hold on real quick, if you could
Sure.
zoom in on the structures on the lower left, just, yeah. So in between, so go to the, like where the buildings are to the right now. So in between where those buildings are, that's where they're going to have open space. So I think the one on the...
I can show you that on the
Oh, you
list.
have that?
Yeah, yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. Oh, same one. Hold on.
What's city code for, town code for green space for new development?
35%, I believe. Mark, do you remember if that's accurate?
It's something like that. I'm looking right now to see if I can find it.
Because that doesn't look like 30, even 30%. But I could be wrong.
I wonder if that corner that's
So,
like floodplain is.
Right.
so just as a point of reference, Colton is down here, Tyler's over here. There's a large manicured, flexible, they're calling it flexible recreation area
Yeah.
here.
They described it as a great lawn type idea.
And then there's a small park in here, and you know, you can see some of the amenities that are in here. That it's you know, they're going to have a shade structure, a picnic table, and then landscaping. These are all trees. You know, different symbols show deciduous or evergreen trees. And these are just kind of different details, like where they're planning on putting pet stations, trash cans, recyclables. You know, this is another area that has you know, some amenities for children to play in. Kind of too big now.
So is there someone on town staff that actually goes through and calculates how much green space is in these blueprints as they come through? Okay. Do you know how much is calculated for this?
I do not know.
It's 3.3 acres.
Thank you. I know it's in these tiny little notes here.
Yeah, it is.
That is tiny. Oof.
It doesn't, I don't know, it looks nice.
And these are just, you know, showing some of the features that'll be there, showing different furniture, outdoor furniture types, you know, and this is kind of the typical, you know, what things look like, all the details and all the colors and tree types, and plant types, and
Yeah, so 35%, I believe, was the requirement, and because of just the way they classify open space, it turns out that it's actually closer to 45 or 46% in this development. Yeah.
So,
And that includes the space this side?
yeah, there's like lot
To
2
the-
and
to the-
No.
only within this boundary
Okay.
is where the
So lot 2 and 3 are potentially completely different developments, or?
Yeah, a hotel, one hotel, or, Mark, are there 2 hotels that are supposed to go over there, or just one hotel?
I believe it's zoned for 2 pads.
Yeah.
They must be considering parking lots as open space.
So yeah, so none of this includes lots 2 and 3. It's just within this boundary. So I don't know that.
How could it be 45%?
A
I mean,
really-
that'd be like half of this being green, right? That seems almost illogical.
I think it comes down to just how much is on the borders and the edges. I mean, it's
between here and here.
Wow. Okay.
Here in between.
yeah. I saw the number presented by both the developer and Stephen Williams confirmed it on town staff. So
Good.
I'm assuming due diligence was conducted. I don't have any comments.
I mean, is anything really in our purview here? It seems like not really.
It seems like we're kind of late in the process anyway, right?
Well, no, this is the right time of the process.
Is
so
it?
yeah.
Oh, I thought this was already a done deal.
No. So where they're trying to prioritize getting committee input is either just before or just after planning commission, but before it gets to the town board. That way the town board can have all of the committee's input that may be applicable. So yeah, this is still the right time, but
Okay.
I mean, we have our connectivity to the.
Yeah, it seems to meet the basic criteria, meets the open space town code percentage. It has connectivity points to the trail. That it doesn't there's no wildlife corridor or anything like that. It's pretty much isolated. So around the reservoir with the existing trail. So I'm good with it.
Yeah.
At this point.
Does anybody else have any comments, questions, concerns? All right, well, maybe we stay silent on this development then. I don't think that's a bad thing.
Glad I could find that other one.
Thank you. Okay, so moving on to discussion of our different properties. Thank you. So during the board retreat this past month, actually we already have this pulled up, the property over at 3rd Avenue got brought up again, and a few of the trustees asked that we just make sure we discuss it again to do our due diligence. So Sean, you went out there and actually looked at the...
It's right where that blue blob is in the lower left, except that building isn't there anymore.
Yeah, no, it's not gone, right?
Yeah, there's actually encompasses a couple properties. They removed all those, like 4 buildings there, leveled it out, and now it just has no trespassing signs all along there. It's roughly 3 acres from the bend all the way down to that, I guess, the 3rd driveway down there.
This
right,
one?
yeah, right there.
Yeah.
So that whole area, and you can kind of see the creek goes. Part of the property actually does go across the creek there. You know, it's not for sale in anything I've been able to see.
I saw a for sale sign.
Yeah, I think it's up for sale now.
Yeah.
It must have been real recent then.
Last week I rode through there and it said for sale, and I believe it said 8 lots or something like that. I believe is the number I saw.
Yeah.
So it does look to me like it is now.
Is it on the MLS?
I have not checked that. I just saw the sign when I rode my bike through there the other day.
I rode by this morning and I didn't see any for sale sign. I just saw the no trespassing sign.
Where was the for sale sign? Just curious.
Kind of where the driveway is between those 2 structures.
I think it is on the MLS right now.
I found
It is.
it on Zillow, or Zillow has it. But
What's the price of it?
I'm seeing $800,000 for 3/4 or 1/3 of an acre.
1/3 of an acre. Yeah, that's got to just be one of the lots then, because this is definitely more than 1/3 of an acre.
I mean, that definitely changes our price per acre.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Equation.
2.4 an acre.
Yeah. Well, I mean, to recap, we recently talked about this, and the big things that came out of that discussion was, yes, it's valuable that we are on the creek, and that provides some natural experiences, which is nice. Some detractors were that it is kind of in a developed area already, and it was platted as such, so we kind of be traipsing into territory that we haven't gone in before, of trying to turn a developed platted area into open space. We had conversation about how it's potentially somewhat duplicative of other amenities. So the hope is that if the Rogers Farm area is developed here, that we'll also have creek access and interaction that would be very similar to this property. And down at Parks 1 and 2, when those are ultimately built, we're going to have creek interaction. So the big values that we were getting over here, we're also getting through other areas. Now, other big detractor, which is one of the reasons why Shan Shan has been at the top of the list, is it's been negative on the area to be driving traffic through these small residential streets. And I think that was basically why we ended up not pursuing this further. In my view, nothing's really changed, especially hearing these costs, and I'm not sure that it's in the town's best interest to pursue this property as open space.
Does it not connect to the open space?
It does. It borders Superior Open Space, which borders Boulder County, so it is contiguous. I mean, it does connect to all that to the south.
Okay,
Yeah,
but it's not
portion.
something that Boulder County could be interested in.
How does it connect to the south, though? Because there are a couple houses that are still there.
Behind it.
Behind it.
Behind
Okay.
it, yep.
So there's,
To the west.
So there's no trail connections, it
No.
just connects, like, the
I
open
see.
space itself
Yep,
connects.
correct.
Yeah.
I didn't realize it ran behind those other structures.
So I don't know if you want to bring up the BOCO Maps property viewer, Ken. You can get a better feel for how that all connects that way.
County, You'd think that people keep looking at that or something on this computer.
Mhm.
Where's, did I miss the map?
Property search.
The property search.
It's down just a
Oh.
bit.
It's just maps.boco.solutions, and then,
You know, by heart, huh?
well, I'm looking at it right now. But yeah, I do look
And
at
by
it. Yep. So, yeah, so you can see there, that one, and then the one to the east of it. Yep, and then just below, at the end, the southern end of that property, if you go just west of it, that's town-owned property.
This area right here.
No, nope, the one just to the left, or to the right of it, sorry.
Kinda has
Just
a
to the right,
funky
it's
hood
that
on the
funky,
top.
yeah, right there. Not, one over, one
Yeah.
over.
Right there.
Right there, yeah,
So-
perfect. And if you go to property on the side, scroll down Town of Superior,
Okay, so-
which goes to BOCO,
Okay, so the town already owns this piece?
Yes.
And then the two pieces?
which goes
that
behind all those other properties.
We're talking about
Yes.
connect to this?
Correct.
Okay. I was thinking the Third Avenue properties were this part, but Superior, Town of Superior already owns this.
Yes. So in essence, that would all potentially, you could
Yeah.
put a trail along the creek is what I'm saying.
Well, and the other interesting thing is you get that close, you're getting really close to being able to put a trail along the entire creek
Yeah.
to connect. There's only a few choke points after that, which would totally change the narrative around needing a trail through Rogers. Because, right, it's all just skirting to try to make this connection from the other side of McCaslin to that trail.
Yeah.
And if
Yeah.
you start going down the properties along the creek, you'll see, I think there was only, if you had those properties, there'd only be one other maybe that you would need to get to be able to put the whole thing together.
Yeah, I kind of wonder what the people that live along, that border that would think about a trail running through their backyard, though. I can't imagine they would like that very much.
Well, you could always build a bridge that goes over to the other side, and then it wouldn't be right against them, right? They'd be on the other side of the creek, depending on where you potentially could put a bridge.
Where would you connect the trail to then?
I think you would eventually connect into the Mayhofer Trail, wouldn't you?
Well, I know, so you're saying if put a bridge going this way?
Yes,
and-
yeah, over that side, then head on to the west side of the creek.
So
just
so
just
almost
along
what,
the creek,
so it
up
almost,
to the west of it,
well,
which would go into BOCO.
I mean, at that point,
Is there
You're-
not a
you're-
bridge already there that went to the building that was there?
I think we're more talking as a trail, like as a separate.
yeah, I mean, if you're talking about, going this way along the creek, I mean, you're going to need another bridge.
No,
Oh,
but
shoot.
The trail connects just right there where South Third bends around. You would just connect into the trail there. Right, that's where Thomas Street is. That's where people park.
Right.
Right.
So you just connect there.
Well, right, so I'm saying if we're going over the creek here, so we're not right in people's backyards, that means we're going to need a second bridge to connect there.
I was thinking you would just hug the river.
And not
You
have
have
a
a few
bridge.
homes that you would be near, but most of those have fences. behind
Okay.
them, and, I mean, yeah, there could be challenges, but it also could be a really cool connector if you could figure it out.
Yeah.
Well, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, we're talking about, there's two properties, Third Avenue, I believe, are for sale. Do we really even care about the one that the mouse is currently over? Because,
This one, which,
yeah, theoretically, if we bought the one that is shaped,
The L shape?
yeah, the
This
upside
one?
down L there, you could go along the creek and then where the creek crosses that other property, just stay a little bit north and west of that.
Yeah.
You're talking about coming down basically like this?
Yeah, coming, going the other direction, going up along the creek, and then following the creek kind of on the west side of it, and then as it comes to that property line, you would stay a little north and west to avoid, the other piece of property. What I'm saying is, I don't know if the property that used to have the buildings on it is even desirable to us if we're looking at just trying to put in a trail along the creek.
True.
Well, we don't know how the lots are, they said there's 7 lots, right? We don't know how they're subdivided, could be, old news. I don't know how it's actually cut up according to their plan. So, this may not be reality.
Sure.
That's the only issue. Plus at $800,000 per lot, I guess.
Third of an acre.
Yeah, I mean, should we even continue having those conversations?
Yeah, I mean, that's incredibly cost prohibitive.
And then the other negative on the creek is I think there's issues with building trails in the floodplain. I remember just mentioning this to Patrick at one time. He said it'd be a hard trail to build, but I may not have understood correctly. So, but I think I agree with you. The cost. Yeah.
That came in a lot higher than I expected. I wouldn't have guessed that, but it is what it is, really. I mean, it's their right to put it out there for whatever they want.
Yeah.
Actually, they do show the lots on Zillow, how they have them cut up, so. And it's, all their lots are actually in that front section, and they're not touching the back section. They're calling that back section tract 919. And then the lots are different sizes at that, so.
It's really pretty land, but all along the creek are giant mature trees.
Yeah.
So maybe we could inquire about that tract 919, because everything they're selling is on that front.
So you're saying
that all the
this-
yellow, that back one is not for
That's
sale.
919?
That's 919 as they have it listed.
And do they have a price on that one, or?
I don't see anything. They're only talking about the 7 lots that are in that front section. So it might be worth inquiring somehow about the back lot.
One of the things that was pretty interesting when we brought the Shan Shan property trailhead to Boulder County was their talking about historically so many trail connections
That's right.
into the county, and there is that new trail connection from Coal Creek Crossing and kind of connecting to that same area, and I just wanted to bring that up because not everybody was able to be there.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. They were very concerned about if they approved Shan Shan that we get rid of some of our other connection points.
So,
Really?
Yeah, just because.
well, the connection points being on 3rd Ave and Key Bank, well, not Key Bank necessarily, but more 3rd Ave, right?
Yeah, and there's a connection point just below Key Bank that we said we'd get rid of.
You mean the ditch?
I think they were actually, that's where they were.
It's just the ditch.
The
but
ditch,
It wasn't a
but-
formalized
Yeah.
connection.
Well, I'm looking at this more as a river walk from town center, over to Mayhofer. So people that are going along the
Yeah.
Coal Creek Trail rather than Shan Shan, which is all not along a creek, it's
Yeah.
on the mesa. This is more for a creek walk, and that's a different allure
So
to
I
it.
dug a little bit more. I'm sorry. Lots 1 and 2 of those 7 lots are what's 800K. The whole thing is 3.2 million for
Okay.
that piece of property. That's 1.9 acres. I mean, that's just so far out of our.
Yeah.
But what about the back lot?
I don't see that one here.
So
So.
that might be the more interesting thing anyway.
3.3. So we're talking. Gosh, what are we talking? Like 1.6 million an acre. I mean, that blows the Harrius out of the water by 5x. I mean, this is so. That's our fund right there to buy that piece of land.
Yeah.
So I just think the cost makes this so prohibitive.
I mean, I like Sean's vision he's talking about. I mean, I think
Yeah,
that's
it
a great
sounds
idea,
awesome.
especially when you start talking about tying into the creek enhancements in Park 1 and 2 on the
Yeah.
other side. Sounds great. The execution of it sounds really expensive. And I mean, I agree with Ryan that, I mean, you know, we got pushback on Zaharias, which I thought was more in line with today's, you know, price per acre reality than the board thought it was. This one, again, is just another multiple.
One thing I would add to this is, you know, in terms of OSAC making its recommendations to the board, just because somebody has a property listed at a certain price doesn't make it real, right? I mean, I can list my house at, you know, $2 million, and that doesn't mean it's worth $2 million. So if somebody wants to list their property at $800,000, if OSAC wants to make a recommendation to make an offer at whatever price OSAC feels is appropriate, you can make that recommendation. If the board wants to make the offer, we can make the offer, and if the owner of the property says no, so be it. But I mean, just because they've listed it at a certain price doesn't mean anything as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
And you know, the other thing to kind of think about is, you know, to the extent that part of that is in the floodplain, is it actually a risk of being developed?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, could they
And-
pull a permit on a large portion of that land? Probably not.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably not, but does that also make our trail construction prohibitive? I mean,
I think as long as it's concrete, then it's not a big deal. There's the crusher fines that couldn't be down in the floodplain. I think if I'm remembering the same conversation that you are, Patrick was saying it's prohibitively expensive because of the bridge going under the bridge. You're talking about the one that was the conversation like a month or two ago.
yeah.
It was the relation to the bridge
Okay.
that was going to be prohibitively expensive. I mean, honestly, we don't know what they want to do with this backside. It's not listed in what's for sale right now. It's only the front property that's listed on any of these. So, I mean, this could end up being a lot cheaper. I mean, rather than saying let's move forward and do something maybe again, like some of the other ones, we say let's explore and get approval for town staff to actually reach out to the owner and see, is this for sale? Start inquiring about prices. I mean, price is clearly going to be the big point on here. I mean, we all see the beautiful vision. It's just, do we want to blow the entire open space fund on it?
Yeah. I certainly don't think we do, but
No, I don't either.
No, but it's still worth inquiring.
agreed with that too.
Okay.
I mean, heck, I'll inquire. It just takes an email to the real estate agent. Anyone can do it. It's public, right? It's MLS.
Mhm.
It's not. It's
But is this one part of MLS? I thought it's just this.
It's listed on Zillow, and it actually is
And that-
one of the
it does
plots.
include that one?
Yeah,
Oh,
it
okay.
includes that
It
one.
includes the one you highlighted, but not the one.
Yeah, what Ryan was just showing us.
No,
didn't have
if you go through all the pictures on Zillow, it actually, the 919 actually is highlighted. I know you look at it, green, 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 and then the back section they do mention as well. So I'm more than happy to take the action to email a real estate person, ask them if 919 is for sale.
Can we get
and the
them
price.
to pull comps though and tell us what that should be worth?
I can, yeah. I can just say I'm interested in building a house.
Like I say, as long as because of the nature of us being advisory.
I can say as a
I was
personal.
going to say, as long as it's not.
It's not as a non-OSAC member.
Yeah.
I can do that rather than have staff added one more thing to their pile.
Yeah,
of
as long as it's
stuff.
not on behalf of OSAC.
No.
You can do
No,
whatever
it's
you
just
like.
personal. It's just personal.
Okay. In that case, 76th Street properties. So I think this was just to see if we've seen any more movement from our last recommendation. So Allison, our recommendation a month or two ago now, I believe, was to see whether or not there was any interest with Louisville in here. Let me go to the 76th Street property so everyone knows what we're looking at. Any interest in Louisville with partnering on the, am I in the right place?
Yep.
There we go. To purchase the 76th Street property. But honestly, after reading Boulder County's response tonight, it sounds like they have an alignment, and that this is the desired reason we wanted this was to create a connection.
Correct.
So this single, was it this?
Well, we were talking about the large, that 12-plus acre
This
property
one.
there, yeah.
So the big draw that we were talking about was that it gets us the ability to possibly connect out into the trails over here. But if Boulder County already has an alignment and is moving forward on that recommendation that was number 1 for us and number 1 for Louisville, then this isn't necessary for that purpose. So this comes down to, is there a different purpose that we would want to purchase that for?
Other than it being one of our open space targets.
Well, I mean,
It is 76 parcels. So.
And-
it is. It's just a single parcel out of all of them, and I
But-
think it's the most desirable.
Absolutely, and if you
Parcel.
buy that, potentially others might become available as a result of that.
Yeah. Now, again, I think we had a price tag on this that was in the 800,000s.
Sounds right to me.
Is that on the one on the corner? Or I don't think we knew.
Yeah, the one on the corner.
That one was.
Parcel 1 is still for sale.
That one.
At 800.
Yeah, something 750, 800, 850, I can't
But
remember.
about, how big, it's one and a fraction acres.
Yeah, it's not big.
165.
Yeah. Did we ever know what a price was on this one then?
That's what we were.
We were asking
That's what we're
staff
trying to figure out.
to inquire.
So 12 acres. So. I mean, we previously talked that you could put a dog park on there.
Yeah, you could do a lot with
or
that.
Something else with that.
So Allison, no.
I haven't heard anything back yet. I haven't been given any direction yet or gotten any information back yet.
Is it possible to find out what Boulder County's alignment is? Where they are possibly planning?
I seem to recall they had like a couple of alignments and they had a favored alignment that was along the water
Water treatment plant.
treatment
back there,
plant,
yeah.
and it was kind of right along the edge of that property.
Mhm. So Allison, for you to be able to get direction, do we need to make another recommendation, or Mark, is there something that we can do to
Escalate.
get, I guess, we need the board to direct Matt to be able to have Patrick and Allison inquire about this?
I mean, the way to get the board's attention is to make a formal, resolution at some, or, a motion making a recommendation that the board do something. So, I mean, that's the only way that the board will actually, I think, know that OSAC wants us to actually do something.
Yeah, so I think we could probably basically reiterate what we did a few months ago. Do you have that one?
I'm looking for it.
Is that July?
Yes. I thought we did make a resolution back in July.
Yeah, we did.
So in June, we said we recommend that the Board of Trustees direct staff to explore possible partnership opportunities with Louisville, Boulder County, and the Trust for Public Lands to purchase 7440 Marshall Road, provide access from the David Mesa underpass to the Mayhoffer Trail.
So that's a different property.
That's number 1.
Yeah.
I don't know if we made a formal recommendation on that other property.
You said that was June. What about July?
Yeah.
July is, OSAC
Yeah, here we
recommends
go.
that the town board direct staff to explore whether 7494 Marshall Road
That's
is
the one.
available for purchase. This would provide potential access from the David Mesa underpass to the Mayhoffer Trail and would provide additional land that could be used for open space or other town purposes.
And just thinking about kind of best practices and how to actually get people's attention better than a formal recommendation, which could get ignored. Maybe, so in addition to making the recommendation, if you can then send me the text of it, and I can just put it in my board report, and then just report to the full board that this is what OSAC wants to do.
Okay. Would it be useful for us to make the recommendation again?
Yeah, and the other alternative would also be to get on the agenda and like you did like that one time where we had like OSAC's actual presentation instead of you speaking during public comment.
Yep.
So we could either do it that way. I could do it during my board report, or I could have the agenda, a placeholder for OSAC to make the recommendation. I think that might have a little more impact because then you're giving the public notice that at least there's something that OSAC wants to talk about.
Well, and maybe we cage this one as, this is sort of new ground for us because we want to investigate a property that has a built structure on it to purchase, and that's just been different than what we've looked at in the past. Maybe I should say that because at Bulljack we would consider that, and it's not built in, so.
But it is unincorporated, so.
Yeah. And we've the board's received some emails on this property over the past 3 weeks, so it's at least somewhat top of mind. So
Okay.
It won't be coming out of
So maybe
left
rather
field.
than doing the recommendation again, maybe now we just do a formal request to get on the agenda.
I think that's probably the way to get the biggest impact.
Okay. And it doesn't, Allison, I know that when we got on last time, it was initially hard to get on the agenda. This is just, in my mind, like a 5-minute conversation in the presentations period. So it's not something that needs to take a lot of time. It can just get done quickly and easily just to get in front of the board.
And I will send emails
Okay.
tomorrow morning and talk to everybody and see, how the schedule looks.
Okay.
And I'm going to email Matt right now as well.
Awesome.
Thank you.
What was the address on that, Allison? Did you have that?
It's right there, 7494.
7494.
It's in our July notes.
Yeah, I've got
Okay,
it.
I'll look
Yeah.
July 11th.
Now, did we decide though that the previous recommendation about the other property, that we want to drop that because of what we learned about older open space?
Yeah, I don't.
Having another alignment?
Well, there's nothing to investigate. We already know that it's for sale on MLS. This one is not. It's still privately owned. We don't know the price of it. It's unincorporated. So there's a little more unknown about this. It didn't require much staff intervention to get information on that first parcel, but this third one is bigger, more interesting, and
Yeah, frankly, I don't think
Bigger
this
question
parcel
mark.
is all that interesting.
yeah,
from an
no,
open
not
space.
not unless the one just south of it also goes for sale. If you can
Yeah.
get 3 in a row,
Well, and at that point, didn't we say this was in the 800s?
yeah,
So-
it's still for sale.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm sure the price will drop.
So let's pretend it goes down to 700.
Yeah.
That's still a pretty big leap for a price of a property that I don't think holds a huge amount of open space value
Right.
by itself.
Yeah.
But with that other one, and then, you've got that one squeeze in the middle, that someday, that actually gets to be fairly interesting.
That's true.
Yeah.
Okay, so, but when we go to the board, we'll focus on.
The focus is on the big one.
On the big one.
Yeah.
Well, we can explain there's multiple opportunities within the 76 properties that we're trying to think about. But as far as that recommendation, though, that recommendation for that other property was specifically for the underpass.
Yes, it was.
development.
It was.
So I
Yeah,
think
and
we
the
should
trail behind it or
that
something.
because of
Yeah.
what Boulder County.
Yeah, for now. Mhm.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Okay. Item C on this agenda item, the Hodgson Harris Reservoir Ecological Study. Allison, you want to give the update? You want me to? You can go for it.
I can,
Oh,
sure.
beautiful.
I'm going to actually pull up some of this language here. So, I got a scope of services from ERO, and for new members, we've been working with an environmentalist with a company who has taken us on some walks on Coal Creek and in the town center area, and has talked with members and board members took the walk with us. So I reached out to him and gave him the committee's different comments on the Hodgson-Harris Reservoir, and to kind of provide some guidance regarding the comments that the committee had. And he's going to review the background documents, including ecological value assessment that Boulder County conducted on the reservoir. And he's going to do a site visit and, verify the values assessment that was done, and kind of check and double check some things that the committee was expressed concerns about. And then he's going to summarize his findings in a memorandum for the committee. So hopefully that'll be done within the next month, and then we can have it for the next committee meeting. But that would be a really fast turnaround, so it may be the one after, but it's already, we've done the scope of work and have somebody ready to go.
Okay, so hopefully it'd be awesome if we see a product for our next meeting. That'd be great.
Just to summarize, I was taking another note. Sorry about that. So he's already started, he's taken our input, and that would actually be the final product that we would see.
Correct.
Cool.
I mean,
Okay.
I
Perfect.
basically
No,
took
okay.
everybody's comments and kind of crunched them all together and said, hey, my committee, is really interested in this area, and
Awesome.
If you can take this and also give us your professional, not just what the committee, had comments on, but also his professional status on different items that maybe the group just didn't think about. So we should be getting
Awesome.
that back soon.
Super, thank you.
And then the next item is anything from the Northwest Sub-Area Plan that relates to OSAC.
So there's a lot, seems like there's a lot going on there.
Yeah.
It's hard to keep up with because there's all the sub-area plan, and there was the meeting with the developer and all their ideas on how to promote that area. It all seems pretty positive.
Well, and then there was a work session this past Monday where the Planning Commission came and discussed preliminary findings.
I just watched the board meeting, I didn't watch the work session. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, Mark, please correct me if I'm wrong. It seems like Monday's work session revolved around possible changes to the marketplace, and then mostly revolved around beyond that kind of architectural incentives and guidelines for original town, and not necessarily anything that would pertain to OSAC and open space.
Yeah, there was a lot of it was focused on realignments of Marshall Road and potential extension of 4th Ave into the marketplace, creative ways to try to deal with the marketplace, and then mainly like zoning issues with respect to original town and sidewalks, things of that nature. So it wasn't necessarily geared towards like open space issues, more of just essentially like a small comprehensive plan update for that section of town.
Yeah, so even though open space was discussed a lot in their initial surveys, the way the direction went, I don't think really impacts open space, nor the charge of our committee. So I don't think we have much to update here. Any other comments, questions before we move to the next item? Okay, so the Superior Open Space summary report and recommendations. Again,
So
Sorry.
that wasn't the intent of this one, from my opinion. My intent on this item was from Tracy's emails with the recommendation that she thinks that we should be creating a similar document to our trails continuity document to the open space that we talk about. So basically making a spreadsheet of all the properties and trying to summarize where it's at, or what discussions, or what other decisions we've had, because it's all buried through the minutes, but we don't maintain one document that maintains the history of discussion. Like, just the discussion we had on third property would be awesome to capture, so when it comes up next, or we get asked by the board or somebody about that, not needing to dig it out of our notes. So I actually think it's a fantastic idea.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
think we
That's
should
great.
move forward with it. I don't know what it needs to look, I don't think we need to make it complicated. I think the spreadsheet to start would work, and then evolve it as we see fit. But I mean, it's not in our work plan, but I don't think it has to be, because this is just managing keeping our information straight.
Well, I think
So
we-
sorry for the confusion on that, but that's what that was.
Yeah, sorry about that.
That's a great idea.
Yeah.
You're, you're referring to number 6, right?
Yes, I am.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I think continuity, maintaining our continuity document was on our work plan, and this was just kind of part of the continuity.
But the continuity document was, oh, you mean the open space summary report?
Well, no, I mean, like,
Yeah.
we discussed, I'm pretty sure our kind of unofficial continuity document, I'm pretty sure we included that in our work plan.
Yeah,
because-
we did.
Yeah, I
That
see.
was a trails continuity. But
I see them as one
Just
in-
make it as an extension.
Yeah.
I think that that's.
I mean, they serve the same purpose, towards the same goals.
It's for us. It's for any new people. I mean, it's for us. It's not, it's mainly for us.
Also,
Reference.
just something on the horizon, I do know that it's in the works to try to work on a committee Dropbox, because I know we're ahead of the game, that we have our own. But, just like you're saying, for continuity and members coming on and off, and then, worrying about it being in an old member's Dropbox and, all of that, which we talked about way back when we first decided to start sharing these documents. So just so the group knows that hopefully that'll be, with our new committee coordinator and Karen and, all of the plans she has for different things. So it's
Yeah.
good news for us.
So I say let's just move forward with this. I can't.
I'll try to shell it in by the next meeting. Because there are some, those updates that we got from BOCO on those other trails is stuff that needs to go right into that trails continuity doc. So I already need to update based on that. So I'll shell it in and we'll just see where it goes.
And I think Tracy volunteered to also help out with that stuff,
Okay.
right? Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. So since I also forgot that was where we were going with this agenda item, and started bringing up the open space summary recommendation report, we do need to update that at some point, because Anderson property is now officially approved for development, so that needs to come off our list. There was also discussion at the board retreat about how we did our ranking, and that we did incorporate whether or not things were going to be developed imminently, or whether it appeared to be, and whether that impacted our rankings, or whether it should have. Is there any desire on the committee to do the ranking again? I think if we get into it too often, some of it loses its value.
I have a thought. I agree. I think that redoing it every year is too soon. But I think that one suggestion I have is early on, we could add it to our work plan that in January of every year, we would just update based on, what we would think the feasible acquisitions would be at the beginning of the month. Because we look at that open space report. I mean, we kind of look at that, but not really. I don't know. I'm not saying it the right way, but you know what I'm saying.
Can I make a suggestion?
Yeah.
So, I don't really have an opinion one way or the other about, revisiting this regularly. I mean, I think as a development application gets approved, strike it off the list. You don't necessarily need to reorient, all the rankings. The one thing that I think might be helpful with respect to the Town 15 is, because that has been, a town-owned parcel without any threat of, imminent development or anything like that. I think it hasn't really been a priority of OSAC to say, like, we need to preserve this because the town already owns it. And then given what happened this past 6 months with the offer that the town received to purchase it, there were representations that were made at some of those community meetings about OSAC's position on the Town 15, which I don't believe were actually accurate. So I think it would be helpful, to the extent that OSAC has some appetite to revisit this, to at least look closer at the Town 15, because, frankly, I think for the purpose of community education, it is an open space. It's zoned potentially for commercial, but the town owns it, so nothing's going to happen to it until the town decides to do something with it. But I think it would be helpful for OSAC to have some, guidance given on that. So if something happens again where we get another offer to sell it, people can't put words in OSAC's mouth about, oh, well, it's not really a top priority for open space protection.
I mean, so when we've come and, we actually worked up a talking paper on this for our own selves. When we were talking to the public, we were all on the same page to kind of cover that. Maybe we should make that more visible to the town somehow. Maybe we could put that in our, I don't know, in our minutes, or, do you think that's sufficient, or do you think we should be doing more than that?
I think that would be helpful for sure. I think, to the extent that, when you're coming to the board and giving a presentation and you want to talk about just kind of top of mind issues that are, okay, OSAC wants to talk about the 3rd Ave properties or the 76th Ave properties or what have you, or Town 15, given developments that have, happened over the past 6 months, I think that would just be beneficial to the board. So it's just top of mind, because it's easy for the board to just kind of get the presentation that you guys put together and then say, okay, thank you, we'll see you next year, or whenever we talk about it again. But it's helpful, I think, to have a refresher, particularly when some of these properties are being considered for development. Like, so Anderson just was approved. Zaharias, we were told that on Monday night that we should be expecting an application on it sometime in the spring of next year. So, we don't know what's going to happen with it, but it'll be something that the board is considering, and, it's working through the planning process. So, I don't know what's going to happen with 76. I don't know what's going to happen with any of these properties. None of us do. But, for purposes of, that continuity of OSAC's position and also kind of revisiting, I think it's really pertinent for Town 15, just because that was the thing that nobody saw coming, and then all of a sudden we were considering this offer, and the board rejected it. But it was one of those parcels where there were a lot of opinions in the community about it, and a lot of uncertainty about it, and questions about it, and there was a lot of misinformation. So I think just for purposes of educating the community, I think it would be helpful to have something in addition. So whether it's just your position statement that you guys have put together, or an actual formal report where you distribute that to the board, and then we can attach it to the minutes of a board meeting, I think it would be helpful to just get it out there.
Yeah, cool. And especially because there's $100,000 budgeted for community engagement on Town 15 for next year. I think getting ahead of that, having this established and out there to the public at the beginning of that, to make sure that it sets where our position is, will help.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And we haven't approved the budget yet, but the line item right now is like $100,000 for community outreach. And the purpose of that was, the board doesn't have a position as to what to do with the Town 15, because we don't know what the public wants, right? So we want to have, before we have any discussion about what we think is appropriate, whether it's open space designation or parks or an equestrian center or whatever it's going to be, we want to engage with the community to see what does the community want, right? And if the residents say that they really want open space designation, then that's something we should consider. If they say what we really need is more soccer fields, that's something we should consider. And so that's what the $100,000 would be for. But I think at the front end, if we could have OSAC's position on it, we've been thinking about this for a long time. This has always been our position, or as we've been thinking about it more, it's evolved. I think that would be really helpful.
So maybe maybe one thing, since we said we wanted to get in front of the board about the 76 properties, maybe we should expand that a little bit and said we want to do a property update to the board and maybe put together more of a formal packet. I don't know what that would look like, but we wanted, you know, they asked us to specifically look at 3rd Avenue, which we've done. We wanted to get more visibility on 76th and then 15th, or Town 15. I mean, there's 3 touch points.
Yeah, I sent an email, I copied Ken, and I just said to Matt, just do a brief presentation to the board without any specifics.
It might
Allison's was more specific, but.
I added the recommendation.
It might be useful, instead of adding this to that presentation, waiting until we get a little bit further into the year or even next year with the new board. That way the new board gets the benefit of this information also, and doing a presentation like in January or something like that. And I think that's when we do a property update. That way the new board gets fully integrated with what we do, and we can stress Town 15, since we know that's going to be a big process.
And right now, I think we're actually looking at, so the new board will probably get sworn in right after Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
But we're looking at having like a planning retreat before Christmas instead of waiting until the new year.
That might be useful then.
So at around that time would be helpful.
So kind of circling back, I mean, when we were talking about, did we want to, go through the process of re-ranking these every year? I agree that it had become tedious, but then I also think about it, we have 4 members that are new in the last, 5 months.
That's true.
So, that's half of our people, and would we still come up with the same rankings? And I think, to the point about Town 15, when you take away the, put your blinders on, pretend that the town doesn't own this, does that change your opinion? Because I think it changes mine.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I'm not necessarily against it. I mean, when I think about one of the more valuable things we do from OSAC, it's this. It's targeting these things, looking at these things, and as we've talked about in the last year, as we transition from, okay, we don't have things that we can actively work on buying, but how we're going to use our funds to maintain or improve open space. Mm-hmm. I think it's all kind of related, and so I think this is important, even if it is tedious.
That's a good point.
So I mean, think of what we were talking about presenting to the board, right? We're talking about properties that aren't even in, except for maybe Superior 15, aren't even in our top 3, right? We're talking 76th Street, we're talking Town 15, and we're talking now a 3rd Avenue property that's not even on our list. Mm-hmm. But they're at the top because in the short term, those are the ones that are available, right? CenturyLink, who knows if that'll ever become available? Rogers Farm is not available and will not be available. Zaharias, as Mark just stated, it's not looking good. So, and yet those are our top 3. Mm-hmm. So we almost need like a short-term vision as well as a long-term vision ranking system.
And that's what I was getting at. Maybe the first thing we do in our work plan in the year is come up with that short-term vision for the year.
Well, we kind of have it already, right? I don't even, I mean, absolutely. But, I mean, the fact that we're going to be going in front with these list of properties, I mean, that kind of is our short term. Mm-hmm. Because when things come for sale, right, we already know, we know what we know. And that's what we're discussing here, this what are we calling it? Number 6, Superior Open Space Status Document, right? So we already know what we know about status of properties, where they are in development or for sale or not for sale or whatever. So, I mean, I don't know that we even need to wait. I mean, we can start drafting something now. I mean, if we're presenting in front of the board something, we can kind of draft it for that reason and then make it more of an official thing in January. But as things progress and things come on, fall off, we don't know what's coming for sale or when or what.
I mean, I feel like that might be something that we can just take care of through a note in our work plan in the ongoing section, and just monitor open space opportunities as they come up throughout the year.
Agreed.
And give us that flexibility.
But everyone always points to our overall goal setting, right? Everyone always points back, well, your big 25-page document that says this is the ranking system.
Mhm.
So we're not going to vary from that.
So it might make sense to add some type of amended language in here. It just gives us that flexibility.
Yes.
I think that makes sense.
And I think this document that we're proposing would be a good entry into that.
Yeah.
I mean, on our work plan number 2, continue to work with the town board staff to acquire high priority open space.
We don't specify
And
what.
then continue to monitor and provide input on open space considerations related to development plans presented to the town, so that's separate. But you're right, that needs to be tweaked a little bit, that wording.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if we
I think
can
that
solve it tonight, but I think we should keep on this topic.
I think Sean brings up a really good point, though, because, you know, it's kind of a philosophical discussion about, so we've got our rankings, right? But if the rankings aren't practical,
Mhm.
you know, what benefit do we really get by placing a property that is not for sale or too expensive, you know, and is out of reach? You know, maybe what we should be doing is, okay, these are, you know, best case scenario rankings, right?
Mhm.
Perfect day, unlimited resources, we can
Mhm.
do whatever we want, we've got a willing seller, we're a willing buyer. But then more realistic and practical offerings, like, we've got the money right now in the fund, we could actually go out and make these things happen, and then you can actually assess. Because, you know, a number 5 ranking that could actually happen tomorrow, you know, is that actually a number 5 ranking, or, you know, versus a number 1 ranking that can't happen tomorrow because the seller is not going to sell and it's too expensive? I mean, that's the philosophical debate. Like, do we want to actually start spending some of the money in the fund that the taxpayers approved, you know, when they approved the sales tax, or do we want to just continuously accrue this money in this fund and never spend it, and then at some point we're going to find ourselves in a position where there's no property left?
I like the idea of what someone said earlier, have a short range and a long range
Yeah,
ranking.
that's what
I think that would be a really good idea.
Short term, long term.
Yeah, short term, long term, yeah. Yeah, short term would be what's available now, and we would keep that constantly updated.
Yeah.
And long term is kind of wishful thinking.
The bigger
Yeah.
picture, but wishful.
If
yeah.
we ever hit the lottery.
So how about we wrap up the topic by, I said I would start shelling that into our continuity document, and we take a look at it next time and see how maybe that should morph or change into some other more official document that we want to do, and then continue the discussion around that.
Yep, sounds
Does that look
good.
like a plan?
And then long-term, for the 2019 work plan, we can add an item to update this document and formalize the process as far as tracking short-term and long-term
Mhm.
goals. Just because it is a divergence from what we put forth to the board and what was approved in our work plan. So just as long as we still get it snuck into next year to make sure the board buys into it and whatnot. Not that I think they'd have a problem with it, but, okay.
So, by the way, I am in favor of reviewing every year. We review the trail plan every year. I have no problem reviewing the open space plan every year.
Well, and just like the trail plan, if there's no change.
Yeah,
easy to say
it goes
what's
quick,
changed,
right?
and
What's the harm in
improve
going through it every year?
I mean, we make the statement in there that this is intended to be a living document, so.
Yep.
Okay. Excellent. The Raptor program. Vanessa.
I have her document.
Oh, here, I got it.
There you go.
Ken so kindly gave me the reservoir volunteer email list, and I've kind of been in contact with them through one person, and she recommended that I put a document like this together. Just, she said she had some interest from people, but they wanted just an idea of exactly what I was thinking. And this is what I came up with just based on my conversations with the county Raptor person that I spoke with last month, and just looking at other programs, and also with the understanding that I would have to be supervising this and what I was capable of. So this is what I put together, but before I hand that off to them, I wanted to run it by you.
So can you just walk us through the quick, just high level points of it?
Sure. I have a few areas where I know there's raptor nests and raptors, and I'm just looking for volunteers that year-round would go once or twice a month and check those areas out for an hour or two at a time, and just write down notes, or I'm willing to put together a form, or they can email me. I will work with them later to figure out what works best for them, each volunteer, just to give me information on what the birds are doing, whether there's nest activities, where they're going and getting their food and then coming back to the nest, just with the idea of us having an idea what's going on with raptors in our open space area, what land they're using, where the nest sites are.
And where to keep people away from.
Well, yeah, I honestly, like, under discretion there, I added that. Most of our nests are pretty in stressed areas. They're in really public areas, and they're getting by because people don't know they're there for the most part. So there is a little bit of that going on so there needs to be a balance with people being interested to go watch these, but also being protective of the sites. And I know I was told not to make any promises with this program, so I don't know if I think on the very top where I had the goal, if that sounds too strong, that we're trying to safeguard the habitats. But I kind of feel like that's the overarching goals, that if we can see that we have these sites, nesting habitats, that we would want to try to protect them.
Vanessa, also, I have another resource for you, and that would be our wildlife ecologist, Ashley DeLob, and I manage her contract, and I would be happy to give you her information. She has so much information, and we do all the night hikes with her, and all the wildlife walks, and the bug hunts, and all of that stuff with her, and
That'd be
she
great.
knows where these areas are as well. And
I went on a walk with her many years ago when I first moved here, and I actually showed her stuff that she didn't know about. So it was mutually a great meeting.
absolutely, and I know that before her program, she'll come out and scope out what the most current things, that are happening in specific areas. So I'd be happy to share that with you.
Thank you. Yeah, and in speaking with I spoke with the Boulder City Raptor Monitor program head, and he was so excited that we were thinking about doing this. He thought it was a huge undertaking for me, which is why I'm scaling it back. It would be small. It would start small, but there has been interest, so I feel like we should run with it.
So are we trying to bring in like other groups to do this as well, Audubon and subject matter experts to help not just identify but educate and potentially and figure out ways to encourage other raptor areas or something like that? Because we like the idea, but it's not just observing, it's enhancing or encouraging that as well, right?
Right. I think it's collecting this data so that we know, where the sites are, what the timing is with them nesting, because it's the same pairs of birds coming to the same nest every year, which is why it's important to protect raptor nests and why there's rules around that. And then you have to protect the areas where they go and get their food. But yes, in talking to the Boulder raptor guy, he said he'd be willing to come to any of our individual nests if we ever wanted his advice on what we should do. He said if I contacted Boulder County, they would do the same thing. And he even said Colorado State would be willing to come out and meet me at a nest and give me advice on what we should do. So I feel like there's plenty of people that are enthusiastic and wanting to help us if we so desire. a particular issue comes up through a volunteer watching a nest or watching a raptor, if they had a question, I'd have plenty of resources to go to get that answer, and have an expert be able to come out and answer that for us and educate us about it.
I think that sounds great. I think one thing that we could add to the program goals is just an overarching statement of collecting data, to maybe stick it in between the identify and safeguard. That way we can kind of track just the changes and whatnot in our raptor populations, where they are, just to make sure that that is clear, that would be one of the good goals as well of the program.
Maybe also to encourage further birds or whatever you want to call them.
We used to have bald eagles nesting in this area many years ago when Rock Creek was first being developed. I remember that when I was driving to work, seeing one flying over Hodgson Harris Reservoir at one point. I don't know how we could encourage raptor activity is the only thing. I don't know what would be involved with that, right?
That's how I feel. I feel like we're at a pretty critical place right now with just trying to protect the
Maintain.
ones that we have.
Yeah.
They have a large area, that they each need. So as far as encouraging new ones to move in, I think they do that themselves. If there's a place for them to be, they're going to be in it.
Well, and that could be one of the. I mean, once we've
I think
done
it's
a few
educating the
years,
public, really.
exactly. I mean, once we've done a few years of it, collected data, gathered all the observations, and identified the habitats and whatnot. I mean, you see trends. You can identify. I mean, maybe additional areas where if we make changes, we could. I mean, it's
Right.
If we knew enough what to do, we
Exactly.
could do it.
yeah. I mean, there's a lot of value that could come out of this program. This is a great idea. I think you did a great job pulling this together.
Yeah, I foresee that there'll be some pretty simple things that we can do that would be helpful. Things that would be easy to do, not costly or that would really affect the public or whatever, that would be helpful. But I think we need to get this in place and get some data. I have a lot of it in my head because I've been doing this myself in my head since I moved here. But just to get all this on the record.
Yeah. So I think it's just a practical step forward. If we can continue to just kind of build what this looks like and have make it into a formal plan to incorporate into the 2019 work plan, that's something that we can then launch as soon as that work plan is approved.
This was in our work plan for this year.
Wildlife encouragement. Okay. Yeah, you're right. I was thinking way more specific than that, but no, this would fall under that. I would say let's meet with Ashley, see if there's anything that she can think of to add to it and adjust. I think the practical logistics of it is this could be a heavy lift depending on coordination, logistics, tracking, and whatnot. I mean, is that something that you personally really want to take on?
Well, I think you can probably get a group of volunteers to help you
I was
out with
gonna
that.
say, I
Because
think that-
we've had public come in, like Susan Bauer, right?
Yeah, and
Who
Susan
did the
was-
Hodgson Harris Reservoir animal study for a long period of time. And she also had people helping her.
Yeah.
So people like that, there are community members that I'm sure will be more than happy to help with that very easily.
Yeah, I also make sure we structure it that way from the beginning, so you don't get way overburdened, too
Yeah.
fast, too much, and
Or maybe CU students in the field. I mean,
Graduate students.
yeah, grad students, intern types.
We did cancel one of Ashley's programs due to non-participation, so I have one this year
Oh.
left. So maybe that could be an opportunity to make, if there is some type of training created, and after you talk with her about, what can we do or what is feasible, then maybe she could help with training volunteers if there are people that are interested, if we put out this marketing for them to get in touch with us. And then maybe that could, you know, because I was thinking about doing another night hike or something like that, but if you'd like me to hold that back and save it, then we could do this.
I'm totally comfortable doing a training myself too. I mean, I'm thinking of this on such a small scale. I'm envisioning that I would take each volunteer out to the site and basically tell them what I'm thinking. But if it were to get much larger, then I would certainly need help. And
Just
I'm not,
let me know.
okay.
So I'd say between now and then, if we can touch base with Ashley, just to see if what she can add, thoughts, whatever, to this, and then bring it back, and maybe at our next meeting, we can kind of formalize it and then start to move forward.
That would be great, and it would be good to know at least by the next meeting if we want to use that extra program for part of this, or if I should go ahead and do something else, you know, because I have to market that to get people to sign up for it far enough in advance, you know, and arrange Ashley's schedule. And all
Yeah,
that
so
kind of stuff.
Vanessa, there's maybe one thing that you can talk to her about is just kind of throwing out to her what you look for, basically what you would talk to people about in training, and see if she has any supplementary ideas, and if there is a need to add her into the mix, or whether you can basically take that on and we can use Ashley's slot to fill a different event. Awesome. Thank you for taking the initiative on pulling this together. I think it's a great idea. It's a really cool program.
Thanks.
Did you need us to review the verbiage on this, or? Okay.
I don't think so. I think
Okay.
it's pretty short if you want to, but I think I just summarized it pretty well. I do have a question about, so Susan's keeping this reservoir list pretty tight. I haven't had any access to it. I don't know how big it is. I don't know who's on there. I just know there's interest. So I'm wondering if I don't get enough people from that list, what other avenues I might have to reach out and find volunteers.
I think what we do is once we all get on the same page and say this is what the program's going to look like and whatnot, and have a structure for what it would be. We could use the e-blasts. We could use town marketing. So it would go out to everybody. So you'd be hitting thousands of folks, and hopefully we'd get enough volunteers that way.
Thank you.
Unless we could find that list that Susan had of people that did it, you know, I mean, because you were saying only a couple of people, and like maybe I could find that list, and then you would know people that are really.
I think what we could do is shoot it through the e-blast, but I mean, we have established relationships with Susan. We can reach out to her and say, hey, here is what we're doing. Here's our marketing material as far as in soliciting volunteers. Can you please share it with your list if she doesn't feel comfortable? And I certainly wouldn't want to push her to share that. So I think that gets us to the same place.
And it's funny because I always get Susan Bauer confused with Susan Spalding, and I don't know if you know her, but she's a Boulder County open space person as well that could probably also, but she works for Boulder County Wildlife Open Space. So I say Susan Bauer, and then I go, wait, there's Susan Spalding.
Perfect. Okay, so Vanessa, do you need anything else from us as far as next steps or anything?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Thanks for coming.
Good night, Peter.
Appreciate it.
Homework duties tonight.
Thank you.
National Day of Service. So we've had 6 people sign up so far. We've only done one round of marketing, and we're still a little ways out, so that's not a surprise. I think we didn't get the majority of the people who signed up last year until about the week of. So 6 people so far is actually pretty good in my book. There were 2 folks that said they were going to come pick the stuff up at Chili Fest. Did that actually?
I handled that one set.
Okay.
but I didn't get a name.
We handed out
Nothing.
So, I mean,
Someone took a trash bag, but just
Oh,
because
wow.
they took a trash bag.
They're picking up trash. and
Yeah,
doing that.
yeah, exactly.
So the one issue here is I did buy the supplies, they got boxed up with all the other supplies, so we need to try to find those.
Okay.
You didn't leave, did they get left there?
Yeah,
Oh.
Were they not supposed
they
to?
did, that was, I
We
mean, if
were-
we need to rebuy them,
Well,
we'll buy them.
it's just that everything, we'll just have to find them in storage.
But it's a few
because-
dollars worth of trash bags and gloves, I mean, the amount of time it might take may not be worth the value to just go rebuy it.
Well, I mean, we can find it, I just
Yeah.
didn't, I just was like,
No,
wait.
Trustee Hammerly actually called Patrick and asked him what to do. So
Okay.
we just left the two boxes
Okay.
there. That's why I took the iPad. I still have the iPad.
Yeah.
I'll bring in the iPad.
Oh, you didn't bring it tonight?
I forgot. I'm
Oh.
sorry. I'll bring it in the morning. I will bring it in the
Okay.
morning. Here.
What else was
Yeah,
in
drop
those?
it right in.
What else was in those boxes besides?
It was everything. It was the maps, it was
So
the-
stuff- so it's-
the first aid
the
kits,
dog-
trash.
the dog things are finally gone.
Hey,
The dog,
nice.
yeah,
Love those. I like
they
those
did,
ordered.
yeah.
Yeah, it's
They-
not bad swag. It's
Happy to have those.
But it was everything, the trash bags.
okay. So we
everything.
should still probably track that stuff down then.
I asked if I should bring it.
I mean, and I'm happy to store it again if that makes it easier for next year, just knowing.
That's
know where
in
it
somewhere
is.
we know where it is, yeah.
I mean, I could go either way, but.
It's with water and.
Well, we did get, did you get your cooler back?
Yes.
Okay. 'Cause
Yeah,
that went
Sean.
fast.
Yeah,
That was
yeah,
a huge
yeah.
hit, actually, all those leftover drinks.
That's
Those went
awesome.
Fast. People were great.
Oh, yeah.
They were coming right from the chili.
And they were like,
Looking for
is this
something to
free?
drink.
You're like, yes.
Yeah.
I'm just glad that that giant cooler full of drinks is now out of the middle of my garage. So, perfect.
I was in another booth, and there was a booth right next to us where they were slicing watermelons, and that was such a big hit.
Always a good idea.
Oh my God, he went through 30 watermelons.
Oh, wow.
Wow. Cool. So I think this was basically just kind of an update. Was there anything else we wanted to touch on? So it's going to be the weekend of September 22nd. We'll do another couple of rounds at least of marketing to get people involved. We do have 2 folks already of the 6 that have requested us to deliver the bags and stuff to their homes. So again, just a few people will deliver stuff to that weekend, but
And we're gonna do marketing this week, a few next week, so that's kind of the same thing that we did last year, where we just got more responses the closer it got, and people knew what they were doing for the weekend.
yeah, and I'll blast it on social media again as we get closer, just to continue getting in front of people's eyes.
Is this something the board should be
That's what I was about
participating
to
in?
ask. Is this something,
That
yeah,
we
how
can-
do we participate in
Yeah.
this?
I would say let's sign up. That way we can still track ourselves in it and make sure that we're included in the numbers. And yeah, it's on your own, but we'll make sure everybody who signs up gets supplies. Perfect. So updates and look aheads. Chili Fest debrief. Everybody who's at Chili Fest?
Okay, so I had the first round with Kevin. First of all, ProStack got hats. I'm so jealous. We need hats. They were so cool because they totally, ProStack, Town Superior, whatever.
I
Wait.
need them.
Oh, man. Those were so cool. I think we should, we should do our own and totally copy their idea, because it was really cool because you knew which committee they were with, and they were walking around. It was way more visible than a little name tag that you could read. ProStack, oh, what's that?
Yeah.
It was kind of cool. So hats were cool.
I think we have the budget this year to do that. I don't think we're going to hit our full 5,000, and I think it was.
I think they were only like $300 for 25 is what I ended up finding, so.
Yeah, and that's going to last several years. 25 hats worth of OSAC members. So.
I don't think Corey and those guys would get mad if we totally copied it, maybe different colors, but the same
They
vendor.
copied it from Caps anyway.
Oh.
So
Caps has hats also. Caps has caps.
yeah, yeah. I think we could jump on the bandwagon and get some hats.
So, a couple things I would need to know. You know, what do you want on them? If you want Osac Town of Superior or whatever, and colors. And also, sometimes the preferred color, they can be out of that color, which is one of the things that happened with ProStack. So then, you know, an alternate color.
Green seems to represent
Yeah.
OSAC stuff.
And they were out of green this last go around, so that it was green and white was one of the color options, and then blue and yeah. So.
I mean, even blue.
I would say blue seems to be a good.
Sky or.
Were you saying blue is out or?
Yeah, but that doesn't mean it won't
It's-
be back in, you know, restocked. It just depends on when, you know, you would like me to pull
I
the
mean, we-
trigger on this. I mean, our next, it would be
Yeah.
National Trails Day again, right?
Yeah, we don't Arbor Day.
Oh, Arbor Day.
Yeah.
That's right.
So it doesn't have to be immediately. We'll be.
Right around town.
I was
Want it for the
lights.
fall.
We need it for our next meeting, clearly.
Yeah. No.
Well, we just need to pull the trigger between now and December. So I would say green is our preferred, blue would be our backup.
So what I can do is I'll send you to the site with the colors, and then you can take a peek, and then I can check and give me maybe a first, second, third choice.
Sweet.
Okay. You know, I mean,
Yep.
next year, if we could get co-located with Boulder County, if that, I mean, I know that maybe that can't happen, but I think that would be really cool. That'd be a draw to have Superior open space and Boulder County open space and tents next to each other.
And the booths are always interesting for every event. And, you know, it depends also, you know, which event it is, if there's an election season.
I'm sure.
Um,
Totally get that.
You know, how many are available. But, I mean, definitely, especially as it gets closer, to remind me of that. And so then, and I'll put it in the download for our department also. But there's
Yeah,
always these
I'll
little
add it to my
things.
ongoing list. I mean, and I know you said booth space was limited. We felt it in the booth, and I'm not surprised to you, you know. But just trying to hang banners was hard, so we had to hang them in the back. Then there were so many people you couldn't read them,
Right.
so everyone would come up and say, "Oh, what are you guys?" And I mean, it actually was kind of cool because they'd come up and each committee would do their little spiel of why we were there and what was important. I think that the email or the town communication piece was an awesome idea. It was just really hard to pull off because people weren't coming to us for that. So we do our whole spiels and then say, and we're talking about communication. Half the time we forget to say it. And so it just never really got out. And so we need to think, I mean, I still think from doing the research on pulling that document together, one recommendation I have is we should make one page on our website that explains all the communication options you have. The town website doesn't have that, and I think that that might be one thing that comes out of that is if we could just pull it together, that would be helpful. But then just keep thinking about how we can promote the town communication in whatever we do. Because I actually didn't even know about it. Now I'm on all the e-notifications and I'm getting everything.
Like, 1 million of them.
Yeah, it's actually, but it's not that bad. It's actually, you know, 1 or 2 a day.
Yeah.
I feel more informed and it's not intrusive and I actually like it, so.
Yeah.
But those are my takeaways. But it seemed super busy. I hope it was a raving success for you guys because it seemed busy.
Yeah, and I mean, one of the hallmarks is if the booths are all filled and we're sold out, that's like a really good indicator, and they always are.
Yeah, right. So the only other thing I noticed was the beer fest was a pretty big disappointment. Half of the vendors didn't show. They had half the vendors from the year before, and
Wow.
so that may be an issue next year because the numbers may be down after what happened this year.
The Rotary, yeah, that's the Rotaries.
Yeah, and I don't think it was anything with them from what I've learned. This is sort of the natural progression of Beer Fest. The first few years are pretty exciting because breweries are trying to get their name out to a new area, but years kind of 4+ are harder. So they'll just have a challenge.
One of the other interesting things about this weekend that happened, and I don't know if it was because of a event venue thing, but Monarch's Homecoming, which typically is not on the same day, happened. We also had the CU game, which was far, but it was close in Nebraska. And, you know, there were several things going on that we thought might have impacted that area as well, which just shook out differently than what it typically does.
But that isn't a reflection of the town or any of the committees. It's just
No.
might be an interesting dynamic next year.
Yeah. Sean, Joel, what do you guys think? Any?
Do you want to go first?
Go ahead.
Okay. So it was good. It was just tough being in the same tent with 3 different committees. And people they just saw these big green volunteer shirt and they just thought we were the information booth. And then they looked at our swag and they looked confused as to what is all this stuff? Why are there light bulbs combined with trails, combined with food, combined with frisbees, combined with what's going on here? So it would be nice to have a little more separation, and so you're not having 3 competing advisory committees all under one roof, which was very hot, and then have these volunteer shirts that made us look like information booth people, which is fine because we generally could answer the questions, but it was a little tight, and competing with ProStack is always interesting because when we start talking trails, then we're fighting over who's talking first, which is good because we're very vested in trails here. But certain people will come over and bring people to ProStack instead of even looking at OSAC as trails because there's no trails in our title. So that was a little, for me, it was a little upsetting. So I would have to butt in and say, and get our word in, or that we are also a trails group. So.
Well, it's a good thing you were there with them.
Yes, that is true. That is true.
I had pretty much the same thoughts. I thought it felt really cramped when we were there. I mean, there were, 6, maybe 7 of us at one point under, trying to find the one little section of shade. And when you said all the booths were sold out, that kind of led me to understand why. But I thought, if we had two booths, if that was possible, or like an L-shaped booth or something where we could spread out a little bit, because it was interesting when people were coming up and getting a light bulb, and then well, why do you have pretzels here? And where's the water from? I mean, it was just disjointed, I guess, is what it was. And we had some good conversations. I don't want to discount the fact that we talked to some people, got some good input. I mean, we kind of covered some of that earlier. But I agree with Sean that, if we could spread out a little bit, if we could, I'm kind of the mindset that if we split into 2 booths, we make more sense to be in a booth with ProStack than we would be with, the recycling committee or environmental or something like that. But in general, that's my feedback, because I felt it was crammed.
And it would be
also,
nice.
I'm sorry, a lot of the time, for example, ACES, in the past, or ProStack in the past, or even OSAC in the past, a lot of times committee members won't be present. And so then, how do we balance that members' availability with holding a space and how many people will actually come? And that's why we were trying to say, hey, 2 members for a shift at the most, because, we've had it in the past where we've had all the stuff for a committee and then no one comes. So trying to balance that, I feel like our group is very active with
I've passed out a lot of ProStack and ACES stuff in my day.
I think given OSAC's charter, we should have our own booth because it should emphasize the openness and the space.
Well, you're here.
Ironically, there was someone that didn't show up next to us, and we were like, why don't we just take over their spot? But but it would be nice to actually have the signs up on the tent instead of behind us, because no one looked behind us. And they didn't look at our name tags. All I saw was volunteer.
Well, and I mean, one of the things we might think about because of that, trying to balance that, is do we get a banner that's advisory committees?
Yeah.
You know, because there are
Yeah.
6, 7, 8 advisory committees.
Yeah,
Or
and that-
the planning board, or 7.
And that's a common problem at every one of these. I mean, I've worked with ProStack, ACES, and whatnot when we get there to start 4th of July, Chili Fest in prior years, where we're trying to get them all around on
Right.
every
And
side.
we put them on 3 sides before.
Yeah, and then you've got one down below. It gets to be pretty.
But
pretty
we also
difficult.
use ours for National Trails. Day a
Exactly, I
lot.
think-
So like, we get a lot of use at our own thing, but, you know, how do we figure this one out?
Well, if we're going to be into a single tent, then I think advisory committees make sense. If we're in a situation like 4th of July, where we were spread out
Right.
amongst 3 different tents,
More room. and
then
event.
it's fine for everybody to have their own, and we do have our own, so that's not the end of the world. But yeah, spreading out was nice. 4th of July was kind of the perfect mix, in my opinion, of space, because we did share with ACES, and even though they also had light bulbs and we were passing out dog bags, we could at least have enough space that it was clear we're 2 different groups rather than one glob of people. Yeah.
Melting away.
And I'll definitely bring it to our department download meeting, and we also work with the chamber, so it's a fine balance between businesses and booths and all of that stuff. But I really appreciate it, and I'm sorry that you guys were cramped. And that's why I had sent that email. I was a little bit concerned about it, so that's why I was like, hey, guys. Just
Yeah, I totally understand. That's the way it is.
Yeah.
I have a question. How do us new folks get one of those cool name tags?
So we just had a big order of name tags before you started, and then we had 4 people with interest on this committee. You know that, you know, we haven't filled all the spaces yet. And as soon as the next round of people then, because it's not just our committee, it's all the other committees. And then we have a person that orders them all, and they try to order them in a larger batch. So that should happen soon. It shouldn't be too much longer. Yeah.
All right. The ProStack leadership meeting update. Ryan and I met with Corey and Jock a week ago. We went over kind of the common areas between the 2 committees. We discussed trails that needed to be cut off, and basically it's trails we already talked about tonight that Boulder County said, no, we're not going to do that, or it was too expensive. I think those were really the 2 reasons we dropped them. So we cleaned up the trail document, so next year we're not going to unnecessarily rank trails that we know are never going to happen again, which will be nice. We talked about wayfinding and naming projects, and there was interest from them. I don't think we really came to a conclusion on exactly what would occur, but I think it's something we'll add to our work plan for next year. It sounded like they probably add to their work plan. Is that right?
Yeah, that's what I remember.
Is there anything else we really talked
Well,
about?
we talked a little bit about Town 15, but we both agreed that we have slightly different priorities, and we'll pursue our different priorities, and everybody's cool with that. I mean, I didn't expect a different outcome from that. So, but the other one we did tee up with them, Joel, was this idea of mixed-use trails, the soft shoulder trails. They thought it was a cool idea, you know, figuring out how we would do it or whatever. But they thought that was a cool idea. And again, it goes along with trails, is where we have that biggest overlap. So, if we decide to pursue that next year, I think at least they won't be surprised to see it on a work plan. The only other big takeaway I got from updating our trails plan is that we both agreed that with how fast town center is developing, that figuring out what the trail connectivity through there should look like needs to be a high priority for both of us in our work plans next year.
Yeah, so like right now, we just have that like number one overall town center, and that's it.
Right.
So actually, it's forcing a conversation of what's our connectivity truly going to look like. And not, I mean, that still might be difficult, but it'll at least put it front and center in everybody's mind and make it a priority rather than an afterthought.
Yeah, that's definitely been something I've talked with a lot of people about, is what the future north-south connections will be between McCaslin and 88th.
Yep.
And there's a lot of interest in that, so I think that makes a lot of sense.
Mhm.
I think that was the biggest takeaway.
Yeah.
I mean, that and getting the trail map cleaned up, but overall, it was easy. It was good to talk to those guys.
It was easy when we could finally get the four of us in the same location. It
Yeah.
took us about 3 or 4 months to get this thing scheduled, and that wasn't because we weren't trying.
So this wasn't at Chili Fest that you guys met?
No.
Okay.
No, we decided to donate some of our tax dollars to Brunelleschi's. Maybe not donate, but send some of our tax dollars to Brunelleschi's. Track day, or sorry, the Coal Creek corridor construction schedule.
Right now, it's supposed to begin in the fall. So that's the latest and greatest.
So just so we're clear, and maybe for new members, this is redesigning the river, right? So those trees were pulled out. This is actually reshaping the river from basically from here down to where it crosses on 36 through town center, and kind of as a first part. I guess it's part of the parks plan, but it was one that we could get done now in preparation for the park planning.
Yeah, there'll be several different drop boxes to control the flow and make it more interactive when the parks do go in.
And it was something that was submitted several years ago, and we were waiting on approvals from the Army Corps of Engineers. So we got the permit from the Army Corps of Engineers, and a lot of it was in response to the 2013 floods, which actually moved the creek bed, and
Yeah.
to try to address that. And so it'll be an exciting project for sure.
It'll be great when
Yeah.
it's done. It's gonna be so nice.
It's being done this year?
Started.
Started, okay. I heard done.
When are they looking to be completed, though, Allison, do you know?
Well.
I mean, ballpark, is it years? Is it months? Is it?
I don't think it's years, but I think it's probably 6 to 12 months for sure.
Yeah.
And are you including the park?
I'm not including the park.
Yeah.
So it depends on what you're asking specifically. The parks could be like.
Oh, no, not the park, just the river.
Just the creek.
Weather will factor into it as well.
Track day update.
Tract A, I think the trail is done. There isn't going to be irrigation on that area, and it's still being used for staging for the road work on McCaslin, which I'm sure everyone's familiar with. And it will be reseeded with native seed, per our specs. And as soon as that work is done, it'll be seeded and ready to go.
Awesome.
And so the McCaslin construction schedule will be done this month, so potentially.
Mhm.
I'd say through October.
I know, that's what I heard from the board meeting, was that they thought it would be done.
Can't happen too soon.
I know, trust me.
I love the potholes.
I know.
So that's exciting, though. We won't have a trail to nowhere, hopefully in a couple weeks.
Well, nowhere-ish. I mean,
Yeah.
At least you can get in.
Yeah, it's
Yeah. You don't have to 100% trespass
Yeah.
to get to the trail. Awesome. Standing updates, wildlife enhancement encouragement activities.
So we covered that.
Yes, I think we did a heck of a job already.
I have other ideas, but I'm gonna stick with what I'm working on.
Probably a good idea.
And feel free to talk to Ashley about your other ideas too.
Yeah.
She's a great resource and she's really friendly and educated about all of these things.
Yeah. Joel, you want to enlighten us on the Rocky Mountain Greenway?
Sure. So I sent this out to our group today, but article in the Daily Camera came out today that Rocky Flats is going to open 11 miles of trail this weekend.
Do we know what that trail looks like? Did they actually decide on the trail?
They had no map.
Interesting.
I don't know when the construction has happened. I was completely surprised by it all, but I thought it relevant to the topic. I mean, I think the takeaway really is the Rocky Mountain Greenway is going through. We just don't know exactly all the parts. We kind of know where it terminates now in the Westminster Dog Park and where they're going to take it to, which is kind of where Colton Trail hits High Plains Trail on the Boulder side. How it gets between those two is still up in the air, but the article in the Camera, if you haven't read it, it mentions that there are still legal suits that are going on, but it kind of skirts the fact that those were supposed to, I think, prohibit the opening of it, but it's going forward regardless. So,
Yeah.
Mark, whatever happened with Superior's lawsuit?
It's pending, and so the environmental groups that filed our lawsuit first, theirs was dismissed. So ours is pending. So I
Did it not request a stay of opening?
They moved for a preliminary injunction, and I don't know if it's still being briefed, but my understanding is nothing's been set for a hearing or anything like that. So,
Gotcha.
but I'm going to ask our environmental attorney what's going on with that.
other than that, I've got the August notes from the Rocky Flat Stewardship Committee that I'll send out to everybody. They're in my inbox. I haven't gone through them. I usually like to take a look at them and then kind of point out anything I see of note. But I'll do that next few days and get those across. Let everybody know when the next meeting will happen, which should be, I think, early October sometime.
So there is a actual map with trails on it on the government wildlife site that actually shows maps.
Do they have
trails going through it?
Do they have a date on that one?
It just says fall of 2018, not an actual
Well,
date.
this proposed trail was in 2015.
Oh, interesting.
So
but that's the latest.
That's an old alignment from what I've seen.
Yeah, I've seen so many versions of it, and I've noticed that a lot of the ones I've seen online weren't the most recent versions that we'd seen from, like, when Sandy Pennington was shooting us trails that she was somehow getting. I think she was getting them from the Stewardship Collaborative.
Yeah.
Or the Rocky Flats Stewardship Council. Yeah. Shan, I don't think we have any updates yet because it hasn't gotten in front of Boulder County, so it's still just in between the approval from POSAC and Boulder County commissioners. But it is preliminarily included in next year's budget, which is awesome.
Yes, it is.
So the next step is Boulder County Commissioners.
Yeah, Boulder County commissioners approve it, we fund it, and then we build it, right? That's all of the approvals we need. Yeah. So we're good. Actually, Allison, is that going to need to go through, I mean, I know we put like the parks 1 and 2 through like an FTP process. Do we actually have to bring like a formal, I mean, we own the land, so I don't think it's not on a developed area, so we don't have to go through a formal process to get the design approved through the board, do we?
Not that I understand.
Okay.
It will have to be put out to bid depending on the
Yeah.
cost.
Right. Okay. So finally, the pros newsletter bullet items.
I have 3 outlined.
Let's add the National Weekend of Service.
Okay. OSAC sponsored trash picnic.
Mm-hmm.
It's in that marketing verbiage.
Will we have enough room for it in the
Or I can just
bullets?
send you Karen the list, and you guys could add, could tweak it as needed. Or it's okay, send it to me, that's fine.
Well, I mean, we can pare it down, but then.
Oh, you're saying to actually just get it in the newsletter, not as one of our bulleted items, or?
No, I think it's a good idea to do it as a bulleted item, but it's also gonna be in the newsletter, as long as the newsletter occurs prior to that event.
Right.
Gotcha. Otherwise, I think we're fine. We just
Yeah, just the ones I have, just read, I've updated them a little bit from what I wrote there. Downtown Superior Trail connectivity will be additions to OSAC and ProStack work plans for 2019. OSAC was happy to talk with many of the town citizens at Chili Fest, updated our recommendations to Boulder County for their prioritized open space and trails plans for 2018, that needs to be 19. And then National Week of Services upcoming with OSAC sponsored trash cleanup event that I have. So. Cool.
perfect. And then one thing that didn't get added, but we were going to add a little bit more information about the Trust for Public Lands meeting that took place, just for our benefit.
Yep.
Allison.
Right. One point was Zaharias, and seeing the next steps would be seeing what the board would like to do when the development application comes forward again, and see if the board is interested in seeing it as open space. And the other additional information is that when TPL was met with town staff, that one of the comments was that they're mainly interested in property with values over $1 million, and also that they received our contact information with CenturyLink property.
So anything over $1 million, that's pretty much all of our properties.
Half acre.
Yeah.
Get them on Third Avenue.
Yeah, exactly.
Excellent. Thank you, Allison.
Sure.
Anybody else have any final comments, questions, anything for the good of the order? Excellent. We are adjourned.
All right, thank you all.